There are houses where life has grown thin. Roofs still hold back the sky, children still sleep in straw, but shame sits at the table as surely as bread once did. In such homes, the future is measured in the next creditor's knock, and hope is a fragile thing. The scripture tells of one such house. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondsmen. 2 Kings 4:1 KJV. Hear the ache in that single sentence. A widow, the children at risk of being taken as slaves to settle a debt. The sorrow of a family at the mercy of another's claim. This is not only ancient law, this is the modern terror of bills that devour dignity, of debts that steal futures and turn households into bargains. The pain is the same. Hunger, fear, the humiliation of not being able to save your own. Elisha hears the cry. God's servant does not offer platitudes. He asks a simple question that will shift the household's path, and demands a small but decisive obedience. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, Thy handmaid hath not anything in the house, save a pot of oil. 2 Kings 4:2 KJV. Listen to that answer. A pot of oil. Not a treasure chest, not miraculous bread falling from the sky. A single pot of oil, the common stock of a humble life. It is the little she has. The place where people lose their faith is where they imagine God will only act with grander means than they possess. But God's economy is different. He multiplies the little. Elisha gives direction. Simple, strategic, and counterintuitive. He tells her to borrow vessels to pour and to trust that the jar will not run dry until every vessel is full. Then he said, Go, borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels. Borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all those vessels, and shalt set aside that which is full. 2 Kings 4:3-4 KJV. So she did. She went from house to house and gathered empty vessels, jars, pots, pitchers, until she had many. She returned, shut the door, and began to pour. The oil did not stop. Vessel after vessel filled. No one looked in on her. No one measured the miracle until at the last the jar was empty and the bottles were full. Then she came and told the man of God. And he said, Go, sell the oil, and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. 2 Kings 4:7 KJV. The solution is both practical and profoundly spiritual. Multiply what little you have, meet your obligations honestly, restore your dignity, and provide for your family. The oil was not a magic that erased responsibility. It was God's provision that enabled the widow to settle her debt and live. The miracle broke the cycle of shame. What can God do with a single jar of oil? He can make it a river that fills homes. He can transform scarcity into abundance. And he can interrupt the relentless march of indebtedness that steals futures. God works not merely to remove immediate need, but to restore honor. He turns a woman's last cup into a solution that pays her obligations and ensures life for her children. He restores social standing as surely as he refills vessels. There are lessons tucked in this story for every household. First, take stock honestly. The question, what hast thou in the house, is not a test of faith, but an invitation to begin where you are. Second, obey with creativity. The widow did not hoard the oil. She acted in faith and filled every vessel. Third, bring your situation to God's servants, to community, to wise counsel. Elisha's direction and the neighbor's empty jars were instruments of provision. Finally, use provision to meet obligations. God's blessing is not an escape hatch from responsibility, but a means to restore it. If you are in debt or shame today, do not despair. Make room for God in the ordinary. Inventory what you have. Ask God for wisdom. Seek community to borrow vessels of help. Act faithfully and honestly, and be prepared to steward whatever blessing comes with integrity. God's multiplication often begins with one small willing resource. The widow's jar was emptied so that others might be filled. God's economy delights in reversal. Where there is lack, He plants abundance. Where there is shame, He restores honor. Bring what you have. Pour it out in obedience. Watch as God multiplies the little into enough to pay the debt and feed the children. Go home. Count your jars. Trust the God who multiplies the little.